Hello everyone, something a little bit different today. I thought I'd do a little bit of Microsoft Flight Simulator. I've not tried one of these before, but I've watched many videos by the likes of Squirrel and various how-to guides, and by no means am I even an intermediate pilot, but I've worked out some basics that I think are worth sharing. So I thought I'd use the new World Update 8 to hopefully demonstrate some of these. I've no doubt I'll make mistakes, but there's some basics here that I think will help some people. So let's jump in. Here's Spain. So we're going to try, let's find somewhere that's got some interesting points of interest. I'm using the Cessna 172, my favourite plane. It's a clear system in terms of the autopilot management and such. So let's find somewhere with Faro I don't fancy. I want somewhere that's got lots of new points of interest as per the update. Lisbon. Oh, there we go. Look, so they've done a lot of updates on points of interest and such. So you can see it. That's lovely. That's perfect. So what we'll do is we'll take off from this small municipal airport. And what I'm wanting to show you is how to pre-plan the flight, basically, and how to use the autopilot system. I think that's one of the challenges a lot of people have. There's definitely an argument to say that automating the flight makes it less involved, less connected, but I kind of really like the idea of just setting it up and letting it do its thing and just sort of sitting back and enjoying the ride. That kind of one of the things I enjoy about Microsoft Flight Simulator. So what we'll do, we'll take off from this municipal airport and land it somewhere over here, wherever this is. I should really learn where these places are. So this is the south of Portugal. Yeah, so it's just Portugal to Portugal, but there's some interesting areas here. So as you hopefully know, we can click on any individual runway and set as departure, and that locks it in. That's Casillas. So we'll set a south area. What I recommend you do, and I think this is the way, is to then set your destination. Okay, so we're going to do that, and it makes sense, I guess, to come in on this runway here, which is 08. Is that too easy? I don't care. Easy is good. So we'll set 08 as the arrival. So there we go. Now if we flew that, and what we're going to use here is the GPS mode of the autopilot. It would literally stick us up in the air. I'd get us up in the air, I'd engage the autopilot, and it would just take us due east and just drop us down here. What we're talking about here is being a little bit smarter and going to see some of the sites. So we can see that's 14 minutes in the 172. But let's, for example, we'll only pick 2 or 3 perhaps, but let's say we wanted to do a sightseeing flight, and we wanted to have a look at some of these things. What we can do is click on the individual POIs and just add them. Now, I tried this earlier tonight, and I found it tends to decide in which order you want to do them in terms of distance from the origin and the destination. So, which is a little bit confusing. I kind of hoped you could choose in which order they do them. Perhaps I'll show you that in a second. But as you can see, by selecting add in there, it's just added it as a waypoint, which is awesome. So we'll select the next one and we'll go add that. Lovely. And let's pick another one because it's all in the same sort of area. We should be able to quite clearly see the other areas. This is similar to what I saw before, because then if we set this one as area, but we want to sort of swing around here and have a look at whatever this is and then drift off. What I want to do, let's see if it does it here. Add that one. Yes. Because this one's closer to the destination, it's determined that we should go here first and then double back here. So I'm not going to mess around with that. I don't know if there's a way to override that, but that's cool. That's fine. So that looks like a nice little jaunt across the water. There's no real point in having waypoints. I think I can, yeah. So we could set a custom waypoint here, as you can see, to give us a straighter run in. Full disclosure, I've got most of the assistance options on, so I'm at easy mode. So what I like to do is see the incoming landing direction, so it puts the little rectangles out to help you through. I love that. I make no apologies for it. I'm not, as I mentioned, I'm not even intermediate to say the least, so I just enjoy being shown which direction to come in. But this way we're pretty clear, it's fine. So all things considered, we'll check our time, make sure it's bright. Midday, clear conditions, I much prefer that than cloudiness. It's just a nice pretty flight. And we'll give it a go. So this is the piece I always do before we fly. There's nothing worse in my experience than getting up in the plane and then starting to having to work out things. And again, I'm I'm assuming this is one of the ways to do it, but what I do is set up pretty much the whole autopilot such that when we get up in the sky, all I need to do is press the AP button, which is the autopilot button, and then everything just happens. And hopefully I'll be able to demonstrate that. But that involves a little bit of work on the ground in terms of setting up how we want the plane to configure itself with regard to which direction we want it to fly, which we're going to choose GPS for, and how to attain a given altitude that we want. Okay, so let's click ready to fly. I don't go from cold, and I don't go from the gate or anything. I want to get there. I watch so many YouTube videos with people who do it from cold, and it's lovely. For the purists and for the simulators, I get it. That makes perfect sense. They want to do it from cold and want to taxi out and have conversations with the ATC. I've got most of that automated. I've got the co-pilot automating all of the calls to the ATC. I don't have any enjoyment out of instigating those conversations. Maybe one day I'll learn that. But what we see here straight away is that the VFR map has come up, and you can see that it's driven my plan into the ATC, which is awesome. It's doing it in legs based on me clicking on those, so that's good. I may well bring this up, but I guess just to show you how it looks is the most important thing. It'll be pretty obvious that we're going to follow this flight pattern. But having set, and I should have shown you that in the world view map, but having set this as a VFR, so visual flight rules destination or plan, that we were basically setting up GPS coordinates, and the Garmin 1000 down here is very good at just getting you to where you said you wanted to go based on the criteria you gave it, and that's all I'm going to show you. So let's kill that for the time being. So here's the things we do. I always get rid of the wheel, it just annoys me. Lots of buttons, but the key ones are these. Flight Director. This is the computer that determines how to control our flight, and you can see when I turn it on and off, the purple explicitly relates to where the plane is being told to go by the computer. There are some really important things up here which we'll talk about in a second. The AP button is the autopilot. That's what we're going to ultimately press when we get up into the sky. But let's tell it two things: what direction we're going to take and what angle, if you like, or what mechanism we're going to use to get to the flight level we want. So let's start off with the flight level. We're going to fly at 1,000 feet. That's just a decision. I think the ground looks pretty at about that sort of level. So we use the altimeter knob to push it up to 1,000. You can see here it's changing this to whatever I go up and down. I can squeeze up and down. This is the desired flight. This is what the autopilot is going to try to achieve when we tell it how to rise. Okay. Now that brings us to our next one. There's a couple of ways, if I've read it right, of how to reach that 1,000. One of the ones, and the only one I'm going to talk about today, is the vertical speed. So we can immediately instigate VS, and you'll see this here, pitch, which is just manual control. When I change it to VS, it's going to say vertical speed, and you can see here the flight director is already trying to work out how to get us to 1,000 feet based on this rate of climb, because at the minute it defaults to 0 feet per minute. And weirdly enough, next to the vertical speed button are two buttons that are very useful: nose up and nose down. And you can see each time I click on nose up, it'll say increase by 100 feet per minute, and you can see it also denominates it here because the gauge on the right hand side here on the visual will tell us at what rate we're going to climb. It's reasonably short flight, and from what I can understand from YouTube, it's not unusual to naturally rise at around 500 feet per minute. That's comfortable for passengers and such. So I'm just going to keep clicking it up in 100 increments, and you can see the little bug here going up as appropriate. I'm going to put it up by, okay, let's go 600 to see if, only because the last time I did it was 500. Let's see how quickly we can get up to our cruising altitude of 1,000 feet. So that's ready. We've set our mechanism to get to our cruising altitude, and we've told the system, the autopilot, want to go vertical speed at 600 feet per minute. So we'll put us in a pitch, nose up, to achieve 1,000 feet. So that's cool. The next thing we want to do is decide what direction we're going to take. I might, as we come into land, perhaps show you the heading mode, because that allows us to use this button here, which, as you can see, currently is pointing right down. So if we click on it, it resets it to north, but we can scroll left and right here with the mouse button, and it will allow us to, when we click on the heading mode, for the autopilot to automatically point to that direction. I quite like that, because even when I'm flying across areas, if I don't want to actually turn the wheel and direct myself, I can actually just spin the heading bug, put it into heading mode, and the autopilot will naturally follow that, and you can follow it all the way around, which is quite interesting. But today we're going to just use the one underneath it, which is nav. And you can see when we click nav, this direction mechanism here turned to GPS, and that is it. That is so cool, because that is now going to follow the pre-planned waypoint based set of point of interest that I adopted, that I clicked on when we did it. So we're pretty much there. We've set out how we're going to get there in terms of the left and rights, and we've set how we get there in terms of height and vertical speed, so we're ready to rock. So I'm pretty happy. I will flick, and I hope the video doesn't come out too choppy in terms of the way I look around, but once we're up I will go to the external mode, because I just think it looks prettier, and I quite like looking at the scenery, so that's all about me. However, we're there. So what else do we need to do? We've got the parking brake on, so I tend to, again, I'm not an expert here, I tend to fire up the power as I'm doing now before I let anything go. The easy mode is telling me the stuff, and I must turn this off because I do know about this. I've shortcutted to my Xbox controller things like parking brakes to a combination of Y and B, but we're at full power. No, we're not. Yes, we are. And I'll release the parking brake, so we're off. Let's hope I haven't forgotten anything important. Right. So usually about 55 knots is the takeoff speed on the Cessna 172. I will take it up manually to a degree, but then I'll show you how I. Here we go, lift off gently. Oh, this is why I do autopilot, because I'm rubbish at lifting this thing. A little bit of trim. So I've got to sort out my sensitivity settings. There we go. I'm whacking down the trim so that it'll just naturally bring us out. That looks quite nice. And for me, and I don't know what proper people do, but I go down here and now AP. And you can see there immediately the computer's taken over. Let's go outside. Now, we might as well bring it up. I think it's V on the... V stopped working for me. The VFR map might work when I bring it up. There we go. So you can see here the plane is trying to orientate itself to match our GPS, and it will literally take us on this whole route. So technically now, until I need to start thinking about how to land this thing, you can see it's rising, and it will rise, and you can see the speed of rise here is slowing down because the autopilot wants to get us to 1,000. Oh, I've gone a bit too fast. Okay. I'll slow down a bit. I don't think I should take off with literal full power. And the good thing here is, even though I'm slowing down, which of course would put an impact on the pitch required for the plane to achieve 1,000 feet, because we're in autopilot, I can drop this off as much as I like to a certain degree, given flaps and such that the plane will just pitch as it requires in order to keep me at 1,000 feet as I've requested. I think it fired through 1,000 there because I had the power up so high. But there we go, it's fine. But let's see if it's following its... there we go. So it's gone to see point of interest 1, which I assume I set as a beach, because that looks like a very pretty beach. I'm not convinced about World Update 8. I never flew these areas before the new World Update, and I fear that most of the update is about points of interest and just getting big blocks of photogrammetry, and rather than just overall improving the visuals. I'm happy to be corrected on that. I do see a lot of auto gen still, which is fine, but I don't know, I think my expectations were too high. Specifically, I fly a lot of Tenerife, and I was hoping that Costa Adeje would be massively improved, and the buildings are still not as good as I'd like them. But there we go. It's a job for one day, hopefully, when it all gets better. Now, that's interesting that I'm actually a little bit higher than I wanted, because I didn't realise that 1,000 would be quite this way. So let's talk about how to, within flight, drop this down. What we'll see, if we go back into the cockpit here, that vertical speed that I set, which said VS here, once the autopilot achieves it, it changes it into something called Alt, which is Alt I can't even remember the name. Altitude mode. So it's saying keep this, and you can force that on at any time by clicking altitude. So once it's done that, it's just going to now maintain 1,000 feet, which is fine. I think we're still at about 1,000 feet. Yeah, it's marrying its way down the route that I told it to, and I'm missing out on the visuals now. But let's talk about how. Let's say we wanted to make it 800. We can do that on the fly now. What we can do is change the altitude to instead of 1,000, we can just scroll here, and as you can see, the heading bug here has gone to 800. But as usual, we need to tell the autopilot how to get there, because it's going to sit on this altitude mode. So we're going to tell it to do vertical speed, and then we're going to put our nose down to determine how quickly we're going to get down to 800 feet. So I'm not sure of the order to do it, but I tend to put the vertical speed on, which is currently doing 0 feet, and then I'm going to click on nose down just by, let's say, 300 feet per minute. And you can see immediately the plane has gone into a dive, for which, by the way, we need to consider our power input here, because as you can see, the plane is automatically starting to speed up based on the fact that I've put it into a dive, but we're not anywhere near frightening sort of pace. We might as well crack on. But yeah, we're done. That's how we can change it. And we can see on the Garmin here that it's doing its merry way through our little waypoints. So let's pop outside again. So I'm sure many would argue this is kind of a little bit sanitized, you know, this is not how flying works, but I'm very much interested in the automation side of it, and I can just enjoy the visuals. And look, as you can see, the plane is now banking right to meet my next point of interest, which I guess is one of these, the Belém Tower. Very pretty. And you can see that's been handcrafted, or whatever Microsoft are using to generate these things. I'm sure they had thousands of point of interests. Of course, we're going over to Christ the King. Now, what I noticed on one of my earlier attempts at this was that the way the autopilot works, it doesn't literally take you over the waypoint that you've set it. It will still find the best balance of getting you to the next waypoint after that. And I think this will be demonstrated here, because even though, yes, you can see it immediately, look. So I put Christ the King as a waypoint, but it's going to sort of say, well, I'm not going to take you all the way here and then have to double back to get you there. I'm going to use it like a best fit. And I presume that's a feature of setting waypoints. Again, I set this one here, but because the airport's the next one, it's kind of saying, yeah, you can have a look at that, and yeah, you can have a look at that, but I'm not literally going to take you over the waypoint you set. And I'm cool with that. That kind of makes sense. I guess that's good airmanship. So let's see how close we get to Christ the King. I get the impression that's something similar to Christ the Redeemer in Brazil. So perhaps one day I'll come back here and have a look. It doesn't quite look as majestic on the top of Rio de Janeiro. There we go. So the AP is now kicked in. It's doing its thing. It's going to drift us back. And after we do this turn, I will take the opportunity to talk about the heading mode, because it's going to pretty much line us up with the runway anyway. And we'll see. One of the times I tried it, I don't know if it's a bug, but my landing guide, my easy landing guide, didn't actually instigate, it didn't come on. That's a nice bridge, looks very San Francisco. Wow. A couple of little boats down there, super yachts. But it does look gorgeous, I've got to say. The visuals are as impressive as ever, and it does look pretty good. Ah, the docker, I presume that means Docks of Alcantara. Don't know why I chose Portugal, but it is part of Iberia, which is covered by World Update 8. 7 kilometres to go, so I shouldn't keep you too long. Really good visuals on the docks. That can't be, yeah, that can't be just AI building that. That's been pretty much handcrafted. Although it's not perfect, I wonder. Yeah, that looks a bit squishy, but that's, if that is AI, that's very impressive. That's created those cranes. Right, so we are now inbound. Let's have a look. Yeah, oh, with one, there, I did set one more waypoint to line us up. So let's take the opportunity to ignore that and just override it. So currently we're in GPS, as you can see. The heading bug that I spoke about earlier is over here. So if we press heading right in the middle there, it will just reset it back to us. So let's make the heading a few degrees to the right. I should zoom back a bit so you can actually see the effect here, because as soon as I change the navigation mode from GPS, so it's currently following the plan, to heading mode, it's going to immediately change it. So let's make it a little bit more obvious by sticking us out a little bit further. So you can see I'm just using the wheel mouse to send it here, and we're going to immediately click on HDG, which is heading mode. And you'll see here, as I click it, heading mode changes to heading, and it's going to now immediately try to acquire this heading bug. And by the way, this is much easier to use in terms of using it as a live set of directional requests. So as I scroll the heading bug, you can see here on the fly it's going to actually continue to follow it. So if I slowly wheel mouse, you can see it's just going to keep following me. But as soon as it acquires the heading bug, it will just go straight, which is good. So let's see if we can line it up almost manually. Obviously pilots would get vectors and heading directions, but here, as you can see, I'm going to go right a bit. I can see the airport there, 7 kilometers away, so I'm going to go right a little bit, and then I'm just going to use the heading bug to line us up. And I think, I don't know if that's the way they would do it, but it saves me from manually flying, which I'm slightly put off by, because as I mentioned, the sensitivity settings on my Xbox controller are pretty poor. I'm not happy with the way I'm considering going back to the hot ass to because it allows you that more granularity, and maybe it's just me being old, not being able to control things. Right, so we're getting a bit close now, so I need to start slowing down. But because we've still got our 800 feet altitude. Right, let's turn a bit to the left now. See, he's giving me stuff now that means nothing to me. Oh, have we lined up? So he wants me to make straight in, that's fine. So let's go outside for a second again. In fact, I'll tell you what, let's take AP off now, we're ready to start. So, oh, I didn't tell you, yeah, to turn it off you just press AP and you're completely in control. Ah, it's put the little headings on. But I am massively too fast, so let's really kill. So we're going to kill the power here, and I'm going to start trimming. So, depending on how you've got your set up, that's just going to trim the aircraft. I'm also going to start putting some flaps in, which will allow us to have a lower stall speed, which is obviously a good thing. Power right off now, because I'm really quite hot. I should have been much better organised. Continue to trim to lift. Let's go. I don't know whether you're supposed to go full flaps, but you can see immediately the bars there have gone blue to suggest I'm at the right speed. If anything, I'm starting to slow down, so I'm going to throw a little bit more power in. I think I'm always too heavy-handed with the power. But it does look pretty good, and we're pretty square on, and I'm following the lines. I think for me, this as a novice, as it were, I will continue to use these assistants until I sort of get a feel for it, really. Once I'm confident that I can... Oh, he's saying, please acknowledge. I thought my co-pilot was doing that. Do I need to click on the ATC? He's going to tell me off. What have I got to do? Acknowledge landing clearance. Yeah, okay. All right. Oh, see, look, this is why I've got an auto co-pilot. See, look, I've messed it up completely now. Far too low. and things are going horribly wrong. Bit more power. I'm going to go full flaps, give myself a bit more lift. There we go. Tweak it. Oh dear, I'm going to stall now. 45, 43. Yeah, we're banging trouble here. This is not the way to land a plane. Now I do know from landing at similar. I wonder if this is the same. Similar airports. The taxiway is right at the end, so there's no point sticking it down. This sort of airport carries probably big, heavy planes, and I had to taxi for ages on one of them. Yeah, it does look the similar sort of length. So we're going to deliberately overshoot the immediate landing. Normally I'd be sticking my nose down here. Bit heavy on the power now, so we're just going to drift it off a little bit. Just let it slowly come down. There we go. We're nice. You can see on the right hand side there the vertical speed about 200 feet per minute. Getting a bit higher now. Okay. No, I still want to drift it because I wonder where they're going to put me. Okay, let's get it down. So what we tend to do is just take the power off at the end here and let it slowly. I should have done this in cockpit really. Oh dear. Oh, that's an awful. Oh, here we go. Oh look, I think I can get off the air. Turn next taxiway. Okay, I did turn next taxiway. Right, am I going to have to do that myself? Or is my co-pilot can actually do something for him? Ah, he's woken up. See, now what I'm looking for. Oh, is it over there on the right hand side? So we can see our waypoint is set as 0.39 kilometers to the left here. So normally, because I've got it on easy setting, it will give me the taxi direction with a big blue set of arrows, but it doesn't seem to be doing that. So I'm just going to follow. Oh, look, it's over there. Oh my god, it's on the wrong side. This is going to be fun. Right, we're going off grid now. Oh dear, this is when it gets very messy. Right, this is where everything goes out the window, and all I want to do is complete the flight, right? Yeah, I know I've exceeded the taxi speed. I'm not using my brakes. I'm just 0.33. Right, so it's actually showing me my landing area, but it's not giving me. And you guys are my witnesses. Oh, there's the blue thing. Look, the blue arrows are over there. Oh dear, I should have been following the blue, but it didn't tell me. It just said leave the runway at your first convenience. So I went right. It turned out I should have done left. Go figure. But on the plus side, we got really close to our finishing point. So I'm going to go. Sorry about that. I went the wrong way. Use a bit of brake. Use a bit of brake. Blah blah blah. Let's see if we can finish it. All right, brake, 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 brake. Come on. Oh, these planes are so rubbish. There we go. Right. I don't really know how to taxi properly. I tend to put a load of power in and then think, oh god, I've put too much power in. Put some power in, then drop it right off. Right. Oh, I've got no little man wobbling his things at me, but I do have a nice little circle to park in. Go on, you can do it. Go on. I haven't even got the momentum to do it. Right, are we there? Yeah, go on, go on, go on. I need a bit more power to get me moving. Come on then, you can do it. Oh goodness, I'm stuck. I haven't put my brakes in, have I? There we go, right, it's moving. Oh, see, that's when it goes wrong. Help! And then brake. Oh, my engines are still going. There we go, that'll do me. I don't care. Why is the... Right, brakes on. So, I don't know what you're supposed to do here, but what I find to do is what I'd like to do is turn all the screens off, because I'm saving batteries. Don't know why that one doesn't go off, because I've killed all these things here. But what I do find is if you turn the key off, like in a car, it finishes the ride for you. There you go, 12 minutes. Went from one to t'other, and that was quite nice. Everything worked, and I didn't crash or anything. It wasn't the best. It was a terrible landing because I was stalling all over the place, but I'm enjoying more of the automation of the flight itself. I think takeoff and landing will hopefully come in time. Anyway, I'll stop blathering. I hope you made it this far. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you next time.